Lights, camera, action. Don't forget your lines.
Kathy, please.
Okay.
This whole time she was like, I have to rehearse my lines. Like she's an actor. Like she's just researching.
This is a
her
performance.
Work. Okay.
It's a performance of a lifetime.
All right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we got an Emmy or an Oscar or something. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome back. It's the end of the year. And here we are. This is our last video of the year. So thank you for those of you who have been here with us along this journey, along with us. And we are never coming back. Just kidding.
This is our last video ever.
No, just kidding. We'll be back next year with a new video. So be prepared for that. And today, Kathy's going to tell me a story. And I don't know what it is. I'm a little spooked out already.
Oh my god.
Because I feel like it's going to be a spooky one.
I'm spooked already. I've been spooked this whole time doing the research out, but let's get into it because I love you guys and I love this channel. And so I persevered despite the nightmares. Okay, so today I will be covering the demon house in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. For a second, I thought you were saying Gary, Indiana, like as if he was a person. So.
Oh, and Gary, his name was Gary, Indiana, and there was a demon in him.
Okay.
No. No, Gary, Indiana is a city in Indiana. And I want to give a little background about the city because I feel like it's really interesting.
Okay.
And it adds context. So in 1920, Gary, Indiana had the largest steel plant in the entire country. The steel was used for cars and highways because at this time, that's when everything was being built, you know?
Yeah.
And we were like starting like the Industrial Revolution. And so, yeah, so Gary, Indiana was like super successful at this time. The steel industry gave back a lot to the community. So they gave back to like churches, schools, the community, everything. And so it was yeah, it was like really helpful to them. Also, it's important to keep in mind that Gary had a huge history with segregation. There were a lot of black folks that migrated north from the south. Mm-hmm. And then also there were a lot of European immigrants that migrated over. And then also you had your white Americans. And so by World War II, it was fully segregated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Gary heavily depended on the steel industry to like keep the community alive. And for a long time, it really helped. And it was like super, super successful there. Like they were doing really well. Mm-hmm. But in 1970, everything changed with foreign steel manufacturers and technological advances within the steel industry. People suddenly began to get laid off. And it came like pretty fast, honestly, out of nowhere. And so when the economy crashed, a lot of white people were able to move out of town because they were able to get like jobs out of town. They were able to get houses out of town, but black people didn't have those same options because racism. And so a lot of black people weren't able to be hired for those jobs. A lot of black people were outright not able to buy houses out of town because racism. And so a lot of black people were forced to stay in Gary because they didn't have any other option. Today, the population is like 80% black. So that's interesting. So because of that, the economy just got worse and worse and worse, you know? But people were still living there. And so crime went up. And like in the 1990s, Gary was known as the murder capital of America. Like that's how bad it got. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And today, Gary is known as like a ghost town. It's been through so much and nobody's putting money into it, you know? But they're doing their best to like bring the city back to life.
Wow. Is it a ghost town because people don't live there anymore?
People still live there, but not a lot. If you look at pictures, there's like a lot of abandoned buildings, like a lot of like residential abandoned buildings and businesses and stuff. There's like a lot of graffiti over it. People still live there, but not the like in our town, the way that it is kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
I know. So, the story begins on November 10th, 2011. It starts with a young mother, and her name is Latoya Ammons, and she moves into this house on Carolina Street with her mom, whose name is Rosa, and her 3 kids, who are 7, 9, and 12 at the time. Yeah, they were like a close-knit family, super cute. They were just trying to live their lives and make ends meet, you know? Mm-hmm. And this is a picture of the house that they moved into.
Oh. That's a cute house.
Just like a white house with a screened-in front porch. And Latoya, the mom, this is Latoya.
Oh, she's so cute.
I know, I love the red hair. Oh. And this is her, Latoya, and her mama, Rosa. And Latoya, the first time she ever told this story publicly, she told it to the Indie Star, which is like a publishing company. And that story that Marissa Kowalski wrote, this ended up being the most read about story in all of the Indie Star's history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Oh my gosh, I didn't even leave a blending sponge here. Alrighty, so yeah, they moved into the house, and at the very beginning, nothing was weird. It was just like a new house, whatever. But very soon, that would change. So a little bit after they moved in, weird stuff started to happen. So for example, there were these like large black horseflies, and it seemed like they were infesting the front porch. Like there were just a ton of them that appeared out of nowhere. And it was really weird because it was like right in the middle of winter. So that's so weird, right?
Yeah.
And what's even weirder is that the family would swat them away. They would put up that fly paper that dangles.
Oh, yeah.
They would sweep up the dead flies, throw them in the trash. Very next day, they would appear alive because the front porch was like screened in, and the flies would just keep reappearing, which was super creepy. And disgusting. Ugh. Some people think that flies are associated with demonic activity. Like in some cultures, you can see that pattern, but in a lot of cultures, they're not. But yeah, weird stuff started to happen. Another thing is like at night when the family was in bed, they would hear strange sounds. It sounded like somebody was going up the stairs. So it was a one-level house. So it was just like one level. In the kitchen, there was a door that led to the basement, and the basement was unfinished. It was just like this large open room with concrete. And so at night, it sounded like somebody was like walking up the stairs, and it was super creepy.
Ooh, that's super eerie.
Yeah, and they would also hear the door that goes down, like in the kitchen that goes down to the basement, they would hear it open. And it was really creepy because they didn't have any pets. The kids would be sleeping because they had school. So there was nothing, like nobody else lived there besides Rosa and Latoya. And so there was nothing logical that could explain those noises. Understandably, this really scared them, you know?
Yeah.
And when Latoya would get up to like investigate what it was, she never ever found anybody. She never found anything. No stray cat or anything. The neighborhood didn't have dogs or anything like where she lived, you know?
Oh, that's so creepy.
Yeah. They even got a lock for the door, and the noises still persisted.
Oh.
Yeah. It continued, and then it got even worse. Like at one point, it sounded like somebody was like pounding on the door. Ooh, like right smack dab in the middle of the night. They even started to hear some growling.
Oh my god.
Which is so creepy because they didn't have a dog. Oh my.
But it sounded like a dog?
Yeah. Oh, well, it sounded like growling.
Oh.
And there was this one night where Rosa, the grandma, she fell asleep on the couch in the living room, and she woke up, and it looked like there was a shadow of a man, and he was walking across the living room, like pacing back and forth. And her immediate thought was like, oh my god, this is an intruder. And so she ran up to turn on the lights, and when she turned the lights on, there wasn't anybody there. And she checked in all the doors, all the windows, they were all still locked. Nothing was missing out of the house, but there were these large wet footprints on the ground, as if somebody with heavy large boots was walking, like they were wet.
What? Oh, that's so creepy.
I know. At this point, the family was just terrified. But life continued. On March 10, 2012, there was a death in the family. And so the Ammons family, they held a wake at their house. And so they had like family and friends come over, and they were just, you know, talking about their past relative and just like reminiscing and stuff. And this went on pretty late throughout the night. At one point, the daughter was just sitting on the couch, and something pulled her off of the couch. Like an unseen force just like pulled her off of the couch. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
How old is the daughter?
9.
Oh my god.
Or 12. I think she was 12, yeah. And then a little bit after that, the little boy, he was 7 at the time, he was thrown across the living room onto the freezer. Like that. And they did it, and it was like an unseen force as well. They didn't know what that was.
How scary.
I know, to be a kid and to experience that.
That's horrible.
I know. So at this point, I mean, it was obviously spooky, but the family, the friends and stuff, they stayed up and they were talking and stuff. Around 2 a.m., the kids went to bed, and, you know, the adults were talking, and suddenly they hear a piercing shriek from the daughter's room.
Oh no.
And she had been sleeping with her cousin. So she screams, and Rosa and some of the adults run over, and they just see the girl's body just drop onto the bed like this. And the cousin said that the little girl had been levitating several feet off of the bed. And when the little girl woke up, she didn't remember it. They were like, what happened? And the little girl had no memory of it.
Oh my god.
I know. So after that happened, people were scared to come over. Like, nobody came over to the house. Friends or family, they were just too spooked to come over. And so they didn't have any visitors.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And at that point, Latoya and Rosa, they were desperate for help because they were like, we can't keep living like this, you know?
Yeah.
And so they started reaching out to local churches, but everybody refused to help them. Nobody was taking them seriously. They thought that they were just making all of this up. And so they didn't want to help. And eventually, Latoya met with a minister from a small community church, and he agreed to help them. And so he visited the church, and he was like, this house is infested by spirits.
He visited the church, or he visited their house?
Oh, he visited the house.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, he visited the house. And he was like, yeah, this house is troubled by spirits. And so he recommended that they do a deep cleaning with bleach and ammonia, and to inscribe crosses over the windows and over the doors with oil. And he also suggested anointing each of the family members with oil. And this was meant to be like a protection against any danger or possession, and to limit the power of whatever was messing with them in the house.
Oh.
Yeah. You would imagine that if you were going through something like this, like a possession or a potential possession, that people would be taking you seriously. I understand the part of it where it's like, oh, you're probably making this up for clout, you know, but it's like, what would a single mother gain with like 3 kids to take care of from trying to fabricate a story like this?
Yeah.
You know, I'll remain unbiased throughout all of this, but it's just interesting to think about what people can gain realistically.
Yeah, realistically, you know? Yeah.
And the very first time that demons were mentioned in regards to this house on Carolina Street was when 2 clairvoyants visited the house, and they sat down with Rosa and Latoya, and they said that the house was infested with more than 200 demonic spirits.
Whoa.
And that they were all coming from the basement, and they were like, you have to take the kids and you have to leave and go live somewhere else.
What?
Yeah.
Over 200?
Yeah, which I'm like, how do you know? That's such a specific number. Like, over 200, you spoke to all of them, or you saw them, or what, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and also, like, how did they all get there?
Yeah.
And, like, why? I wonder if it was, like, a burial site before or what.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting. You know, they're like, you need to leave, you need to take the kids, you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But Latoya didn't have the financial means to just go and get another house, you know? She was renting, but she didn't have the kind of money to just do that, you know?
Just up and leave, yeah.
Yeah. And so they had to find a way to survive in the house. So the clairvoyants told Latoya, like, okay, since you can't leave the house, it's up to you to try to cleanse the house yourself. And so she followed their directions, and Latoya, she made an altar in the basement. She set up a table with like a white tablecloth, and on the middle she put a white candle and a statue of the Holy Family. And then she dressed in all white, and she got some sage, and she cleansed the house while reading from the Bible, Psalm 91, and like invoking God's protection. And then after cleansing the house, she placed the Bible on the altar, opened to the chapter of Psalm. For the next 3 days, nothing happened. Everything was peaceful. They didn't hear any noises, no disturbances whatsoever.
Wow.
And so they were like, oh my God, I think that actually worked. They had a little bit of peace, but that did not last.
Okay.
No, not at all.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
What is the Holy Family?
The Holy Family is the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit.
Oh.
I believe.
Oh, okay. I'll trust your word.
The Son, the Father, Holy Spirit sounds good to me.
Sounds like a family.
Yeah, and Latoya was like telling Marissa on the Indie Star, the article, she was saying that the demons, they not only possessed her, but they also possessed her children, which is super duper creepy. And she was saying how it's creepy to think about because at the time the kids were 7, 9, and 12. And if this whole thing was real, that's so traumatic. And if it wasn't real, it's also traumatic. Like, no matter what way you look at it, that's so traumatic for the children. True. You know?
Yeah.
But
obviously, demons would probably be more traumatizing, but either way.
If it wasn't real, the religious trauma that these kids would probably have to work through for a long time.
Yeah.
That sucks. But yeah, so she was telling the Indie Star reporter Marissa, the possession, it would come without a warning. Like, it would just happen out of nowhere sometimes. And it was really eerie when it happened. Their eyes would, like, bulge out of the kids, and they would be, like, all flaring. And they would smile, like a really creepy, lifeless smile. And they would say a lot of cryptic words and phrases. They talked in, like, a much deeper voice that was not natural to a child, you know?
Oh.
And she said that almost all the time they always felt, in general, but especially after that happened, they would feel really lightheaded and tired, and almost all the time the whole family had a constant headache.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. And Latoya talked about the fact that the entity or these entities would engage with all the children in a different way. So the youngest child, he would talk about having an imaginary friend, and he would play with him in the closet for like hours on end.
What? That's so creepy. Imagine your kid comes and tells you that.
I know, and for hours?
Oh, no. Oh, I feel so bad for them.
I know, dude. And his imaginary friend, who, according to the little boy, was also a little boy, he would tell him creepy things. Like, he would be like, oh, you know, I know what it's like to be killed.
What?
Just weird things.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the 9-year-old, he started talking about knowing what it was like to be murdered.
That must have been so terrifying as a parent.
Yeah. What do you say to your kids when they tell you stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, like little kids.
Yeah, and especially when you've been trying to get help from your local community and you're not getting it. Like, what do you do?
Oh. That's so sad.
Yeah. The 12-year-old, she said that she would hear a voice telling her that she wouldn't live to see another 20 minutes and that her family would be taken away from her soon.
Oh my God.
And when those attacks would happen, when she would hear stuff, she wouldn't be able to move, so she just kind of had to lay there until it was gone.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
I mean, like, it wouldn't be better if it happened to the adults, but it's just so sad that it was happening to the children.
I know, dude.
And when you're a kid, unless you're like, exposed to scary movies and stuff like that, you get scared easy, you know?
Yeah, so that was creepy. That's what the kids would experience. And Latoya said that her family was also under a physical attack. So one day, the daughter, she got hit by like a heavy headboard. It hit her so hard that she ended up having to get stitches. And the youngest boy, he went flying out of his bedroom as if something grabbed him. He just like flew out of the bedroom. Yeah. Latoya said that if the kids weren't all asleep by 11 p.m., that the spirits would just keep them up all night, throwing things around, throwing the kids around, causing a ruckus, slamming stuff, and just like scaring the kids.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And it got so bad that eventually they would go out and rent a hotel room for the night so that they could actually get some rest. But that quickly became financially straining to just get like a room every night, you know?
Yeah.
And after trying to cleanse the house and it not working, Latoya and Rosa decided to try to get some medical help. On April 12, 2012, they went and they visited their family physician, Joffray Jouve. He couldn't say what happened during the visit, obviously, because of patient-doctor confidentiality.
Yeah.
But he later told the Indie Star that he was scared when they first came in. He had heard about the story. He was scared when they came in, and he said that the visit was one of the most bizarre visits that he's ever had.
Oh.
But obviously, he couldn't give any specifics as to what happened. And then at the next doctor's visit, things really took a turn. And this visit is actually, there's like a report on it at the Department of Child Services.
Oh,
and
wow.
according to the testimony of the medical staff, the two boys began to curse at the doctor and they were like growling at him. And then the youngest boy was lifted by an invisible force again and thrown against the office wall. And then the two boys fainted after that.
What?
I feel like that's a little bit, you know, if you're skeptical about what happened, it's a report, you know, and also it's like a medical staff that's reporting it. So,
Like, why would they lie about that?
yeah, what do they have to gain from lying about that?
Literally. Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah. At some point throughout this whole shabacle, somebody called 911 and a few officers arrived, but nobody really knew what to do or like what was happening. It's like there isn't a protocol when somebody says, hey, 911, there's a child that's possessed, you know? Like,
yeah.
But from there, the boys were taken to a local hospital, the Methodist hospital. And when they very first got there, the staff literally laughed in Latoya's face when she was like telling them what was happening. They didn't believe her at all.
Oh, that's so messed up. She's like, go ask child services. They have a report.
Yeah, I can't imagine just going through all of this and then having people laugh in your face and tell you that it's not actually happening. That's so infuriating.
Yeah, jeez.
When the boys woke up at the hospital, the older boy seemed to be back to like his normal self, but the younger boy began to scream and thrash around and he was like flailing all around and he had to be held down by 5 men, according to Latoya. Yeah, which is so weird to think about it. That tiny little boy having to be held down by 5 men, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of intense.
That's a lot of men.
That's a lot
for one little boy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, 5 men.
Well, I'm thinking maybe the force of the child was like I don't know.
Like supernatural.
So yeah, it was supernatural. So it was like so uncontrollable that not just one person could hold him down.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So during that whole thing, an anonymous caller called the Department of Children's Services, and that's where like the report came from earlier. They called and they reported the situation. And so shortly after that, a caseworker showed up named Valerie Washington. She arrived and she was interviewing the family, and she kind of sat in while the kids were examined. And during the children's examination, there weren't any like bruises or marks or anything that would suggest like physical abuse or anything, or really any kind of abuse.
Yeah, because it's like not coming from their family. It's like from a literal demon.
Yeah, exactly. She also sat down, Valerie did, the caseworker, she sat down while Latoya was examined. The hospital psychiatrist found her to be stable. However, when the caseworker talked to the children, the 7-year-old started like growling and baring his teeth at the caseworker, and his eyes were like bulged out and they were like rolling back in his head.
What?
Which is like so creepy to think about, like a little kid doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my god. At one point, he attempted to strangle his older brother, and like his little hands had to be like pried off of him by the adults like in the room.
What?
Which is like so weird to like try to imagine, kind of thing, you know?
Oh my god. Yeah, it's like traumatizing to everybody in the room.
Yeah, seriously. At this point, Valerie was like, I think the mom is like putting them up to this. I think they're like kind of performing because of the mom. And so she took the kids to an isolated exam room. So it was Valerie and the kids, and then a nurse and the grandmother Rosa as well. In Valerie's report to DCS, which was also backed up by the nurse that was there, by the way, Valerie stated that the younger boy started growling again, and he said to his brother, "It's time to die." And at the same time, the older boy, like, he started like headbutting his grandma, and she grabbed his hands and like started to pray. And at that point, the little boy was like walking backwards, and he started to like walk on the ceiling. He like,
what?
Yeah, he was like, she was like holding him, and he started like walking up the wall, up on the ceiling, and then like jumped down.
What?
And did a flip. And
while she was holding his hands?
Yeah, and she was like holding his hands the entire time, which is like hard for me to visualize.
Yeah.
But like the caseworker and the nurse said that happened, like in the DCS report. And so I feel like if it were to be like made up, why would the nurse and why would the caseworker be in on it? Yeah. That just doesn't make sense to me. Why would they lie about it? And nobody was ever financially compensated about any of this. So why would two professionals dedicated to like helping people like lie? What would they gain from that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Holy cow, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Valerie said the boy glided backwards on the floor, wall, and ceiling, according to the DCS report. And after that, Valerie and the nurse ran out. Like, they were scared to death. And the nurse was like, she said that the little boy wasn't himself when all of this was happening.
Wow.
Which is just horrifying to think about, you know, being the child, being the nurse, being anybody in that room.
Yeah,
you know?
and like the kids are like separated from their mom at this point, so like, it's just, I feel like if it was rehearsed or something, how would they even do that without her there? And also how physically possible, because the grandma is, I'm assuming she's old, so it's not like she can like hold him up while he pretend walks on the floor.
It's like, how would she hold that's another thing that I was thinking too, like how would the grandma have the strength to hold up a child like that, you know, like the upper strength? But the little boy spent the night in the hospital with Latoya, and the very next day was his 8th birthday. And so the family came the next day with like a little cake and some presents, and they had like a little, you know, little party for him. And then at the end of the party, Valerie tells Latoya that they're taking the kids away, like while they finish the investigation.
What?
And Valerie stated in the report that all of the children were, quote, under spiritual and emotional distress. And the report said that the Gary police, they went to the house and there was like plenty of food. It seemed to be like a safe home. Everybody had what they needed, kind of thing, except that there were a bunch of religious shrines and statues all over the place. Which, like, okay, like, have you ever been to a religious person's home? They're gonna have religious things, like
they
statues
use that
and stuff.
as a reason to take the kids.
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Yeah, especially if that's what they're reporting, that these kids are like possessed.
That's what your reasoning is for taking the kids away?
Yeah, and it's like, even if they didn't have the knowledge of the kids potentially being possessed, why would the religious statues play any part in their current living conditions? You know?
Exactly. Latoya is obviously heartbroken about this. The emotional and physical distress that my entire family and I have been through right now, and then to have my kids taken away from me. The kids were distraught. She was distraught. Obviously, obviously Rosa was distraught. It was just sad, you know?
Trauma after trauma this family has been through.
Yeah, dude.
And it's like, that's all they have is each other through this whole thing. To be separated probably felt like crap.
Yeah. Especially to have so many people not believe what they're going through.
Yeah.
While they were at the hospital priest, he had, like, because, like, everybody was talking about it when this happened, you know, in the hospital.
Yeah.
And on April 20th of 2012, he called the local parish nearby in the city of Merrillville.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke to the priest there, and his name is Father Maginot. And this is a picture of him.
Okay.
The hospital priest requested an exorcism for the youngest boy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Father Maginot was skeptical. He was like, I can't just give a child an exorcism. But he agreed to, like, visit the family and try to help them out, you know?
Yeah.
And Father Maginot, he believed in demons, but he was also, like, really analytical. He was also very down-to-earth kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so usually seeked out the most logical explanation for things. And so when he initially went to speak with Latoya and Rosa, he was like, the first thing we need to do is to rule out any potential natural causes for any of these occurrences, you know? He did his research. For the next few hours, he listened intently as Rosa and Latoya told him, like, everything that they had been experiencing in the house.
Oh, good. I'm glad they told him.
Yeah. And while this whole thing was happening, the bathroom lights were, like, flickering every once in a while. And every time Father Maginot, like, got up to take a look and see what was happening, the lights would stop flickering.
What?
And the blinds on the kitchen window, they would also swing back and forth occasionally, almost as if they were in sync, like, dun 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 dun, which is so creepy.
Oh, that's insane that multiple people have experienced this. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like just it goes back to what you were saying, that for what reason, if there's no financial gain for any of the parties involved.
Yeah.
Besides maybe the family.
Yeah.
Why would they lie about that? You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. So, like, that would happen, the swinging kitchen blinds. And then also, there was large wet footprints found on the carpet floor on the living room.
Again.
Yeah. And nobody was wearing boots. Nobody stepped in water. There was no explanation as to why that would be a thing, you know?
Yeah, and the priest was there when the footprints were there too? Okay.
Yeah. Do you guys remember how Latoya and Rosa anointed all the doors with oil and windows and stuff? Latoya was telling Father Maginot that she did this 4 months ago, and that the oil would sometimes dry up and then it would reappear as if it was just placed there, like just wet and oily, fresh. It just happened over the course of 4 months. It would just keep happening like that.
What?
Yeah, and during that talk, Latoya complained about having, like, a severe headache, and so the priest put a cross on her forehead to see what would happen, and she started to convulse. Which is so creepy.
Please.
I know. After that long talk, Father Maginot, he initially thought that the kids were possessed, but after that cross ordeal, he was like, I think Latoya is getting possessed as well.
Okay.
And so he concluded that the entire family was being tormented by demons. He was like, I think that they're being tormented by demons, but also by, like, spirits of deceased humans, you know?
Yeah.
And so he walked from room to room, cleansing the house, saying, like, prayers and stuff like that, and reading passages from the Bible. Before leaving, he told Rosa and Latoya, he was like, I really think you guys need to get out of here, like, for real. Shortly after that, Rosa and Latoya, they moved in with Latoya's brother.
Finally.
Yeah. And Latoya called Father Maginot the next day, and she was telling her how they spent the night at her brother's house and they were sharing a room, her and Rosa. So Rosa woke up and her covers had been taken off of her feet. And then she looked over at Latoya and she noticed that her feet were uncovered as well.
What? At her brother's house?
Yeah, at her brother's house. Yeah.
So it, like, followed them.
Yeah.
No.
I know. I'm like, can this poor family just not catch a break?
Oh. So she called Father Maginot and told him that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is this thing following them and why did it uncover their feet? Maybe just to, like, taunt them?
To be like, I'm still here.
Yeah. About a week after that, Valerie, she had to come to assess the living conditions in the home. And so Latoya and Rosa returned to the home and they met her there. She came over with a police officer that she asked to accompany her. And then 2 extra cops came, like, out of curiosity. They had 3 cops with them, the social worker Valerie and Latoya and Rosa. So the group stayed together, going from room to room.
Yeah.
And they first were on the main floor, and then they were down on the basement. In the basement, the whole room was concrete except for under the stairs. Right under the stairs, the concrete had been taken out somehow, and there was dirt exposed. Rosa had told the police that she thinks that whatever this dark energy is, that it's emanating from under the stairs. Like, it felt to her like there's like some really dark energy under there. So one of the cops present during that visit, he was saying that like he never believed in demons or anything like that, but after the visit to the house on Carolina Street, like that changed it for him. He was a believer after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. During that visit, he had brought a voice recorder with him, and he had just placed fresh batteries right before coming, like just that morning. And the voice recorder stopped working while he was there.
Did it catch anything? Well, it stopped working.
It just stopped working, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Another officer did bring an audio recorder, and when he was playing back the recording, it sounded like somebody said, "Hey." Yeah. I tried to find it, but I couldn't. And the officers also took a lot of pictures of the home. They weren't in the actual police report. It was just personal, you know?
Yeah.
One of the pictures has like a cloudy white image on the upper right-hand corner. And when they enlarged the photo, it looked like a face. So that's really creepy. And then another cop noticed that there were 2 doors in the basement. It was like an unfinished basement, but there were like 2 rooms in the basement that also had concrete, or just 1 room. And one of those doors led to a small room. And the cops present at the time stated that every time they would go look at the door, it seemed to have moved. So it would be like a little bit more open and a little bit more open, or a little bit more closed, like every time they would go around that area. And it honestly could have been a breeze or the way it was built, or maybe not.
Yeah, breeze downstairs though.
I know. Another officer named Charles Austin, he said that he took some pictures of the house just on his personal phone, and there were strange silhouettes in the pictures. And when he was driving home that night, the passenger seat started moving forwards and backwards on its own.
Oh no.
Yeah, and when he got to his house, the garage door wouldn't open. But the electricity in his whole house was working. Like, there was no reason why the garage door wouldn't open, you know?
Yeah.
And he later took his car to the dealership to see what was going on, and they told him that the motor on the driver's seat was broken, and that could have caused an accident, like if he hadn't checked it out. And,
whoa.
Yeah. In an interview, he said that at first, he honestly thought that LaToya and the whole family was making all of this up. But after his visit, like, he completely believed them.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reporter asks him, "Do you think that the house is, like, actually possessed by demons?" And he said, "Yes, I do. I feel like there's something very bad going on in that house."
Wow. Time and time again, there are like multiple accounts of people who experienced whatever was going on in that house.
Yeah.
You can discount one person's story, you can discount 2, but how many people are in this story?
Yeah, how many outside parties are saying, "Hey, this happened"?
Yeah.
Parties that are not going to get anything. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
wild.
I know. In April of 2012, DCS petitioned the juvenile court for temporary custody of the 3 children, and the court sided with them, and so they got custody.
Oh.
And there was an investigation that found that LaToya had been neglecting the children's education by, like, not taking them to school regularly. And LaToya later explained that she wasn't intentionally keeping them from school. It was just that the spirits would keep the kids up all night, and she didn't want to send her kids all exhausted to school the next day, you know, so she would just let them sleep in.
Oh.
And so the 2 older children, they got sent to St. Joseph's Carmelite home in East Chicago. And then the youngest child, he got sent to a live-in facility for psychiatric evaluation. At this facility, a clinical psychologist was like evaluating him, talking to him, and they found the little boy to be stable and coherent, but not when it came to talking about demons. The boy tended to change the subject a lot anytime that it was brought up, and his stories varied every time he discussed them. The psychologist said that his talk became like illogical anytime they discussed demons.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's kind of weird, you know?
Yeah.
Several professionals concluded that the children were acting deceptively in accordance with their mother's beliefs. Quote, Tracy Wright, a psychologist, noted that the youngest son acted possessed whenever he was challenged or was asked questions that he didn't want to answer.
What?
Yeah. On one hand, you're like, okay, they're making it up, you know? But on the other hand, there are countless stories of kids not being able to have their stories straight because they're kids, you know?
Yeah.
When you read about, like, true crime and stuff, you know, a lot of the times the kids don't have, like, a linear story, but it's because they're children, you know? It's because of the way their brain works. That doesn't disprove them, you know?
Yeah.
Psychologists believe that the 8-year-old did not have a psychological disorder. She wrote in her report that she thought it was an illusion that was perpetrated by the mother. And the psychologist at St. Joseph's thought the same thing about the 2 older kids, that the mother had essentially convinced the children that they were being possessed. She told the psychologist that she would like go into trances at the house and that she would occasionally see shadowy figures, and the older son stated that the doors would slam, stuff would move on its own. It's a lot.
That's the thing, is I understand how from an outsider's perspective looking in, it could look that way, but it's like that specific psychologist wasn't there when stuff was going down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, when the nurse was there and Valerie, and she was holding the grandma was holding the little kid's hands.
Yeah.
Those people are also accredited professionals.
Yeah.
Why would they lie about that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And also I was thinking too, maybe they like quote unquote acted possessed. Maybe the youngest child, maybe it was real, but maybe he didn't have the words or the mental understanding to really, like, the mental capacity to be like, this is real.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're testing me, and so I'm gonna, like, play the part for you to believe me kind of thing. Because it's like, obviously I'm not being possessed right now, but I have been, and you're not believing me. So, like, what can my 8-year-old mind
brain
do? Yeah.
To make you believe me.
Yeah. Either way, I've been thinking about this story for so long, and it's like, whether it's real or not, it's so traumatic, and it sucks, you know?
Yeah, it's like no matter what the truth is, it's not a good truth.
It's not a good truth. But yeah, so on May 10th of 2012, Rosa, LaToya, and 2 officers from the first visit returned to the house. And this time they're accompanied by Father Maginot, and then 2 additional Lake County officers, and then a police dog. And the police dog was brought to see if there was like a body buried under the house, like a cadaver dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then this time a different caseworker came named Samantha Ellick, because the initial caseworker, Valerie, she actually refused to come back to the house. Yeah.
Wow.
And
see?
Yeah, and you know what? And you know what? Like, further adds like credibility to this. Valerie quit her job. She straight up stopped being a social worker after this, and she moved out of Gary. And it's just like,
how much more of an explanation do you need?
Yeah. An outside source is like, I'm quitting my job. I'm moving out of the city.
Wow.
But yeah, so like everybody met up there, and LaToya refused to go inside, but she like met up with them, and so she was like, I'm just gonna wait outside. You guys can go in. Everybody was like, totally understand. And so the group made their way down to the basement, and they noticed some type of like dark substance sliding down the wall, like dripping. Yeah, it was just like... And Samantha touched it with her pinky finger, and she said that it was like tacky and like slippery. And then she went back over to the group that was under the stairs that had been digging. So Father Maginot, he wanted to investigate the dirt, you know?
Yeah.
He wanted to see if there was like a human body or like an object that could indicate a curse that had been placed, and that would like explain what was happening. And so that's what they were looking for. They were like digging. The police it didn't find a body.
Oh.
Yeah. And part of this search was based on some strange visits to the house made by LaToya's boyfriend, who Father Maginot believed may have put a curse on the family. And so he was looking for like an object, anything that could have served as a conduit to this curse. So like a piece of jewelry, a photo, like a little memorabilia thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so they were searching, and the police had mentioned that the area under the stairs, it looked like the concrete was removed so that something could be buried there. And so they were looking, and after they learned about that whole spiel with LaToya's ex-boyfriend, that's when they started digging. And they removed 4 feet of dirt, which is a lot of digging. And they found a press-on nail, a sock, a political button, a part of the boy's sock, like the feet were cut off of the boy's sock. What else did they find? A lid for a pan and a pair of underwear.
Huh.
4 feet of dirt. Under 4 feet of dirt.
Yeah, that is so random.
Yeah. And it feels like intentional to me. Like those items.
Yeah, like 4 feet of dirt.
Yeah. Buried under the house. There was also a heavyweight item that they couldn't figure out what it was. The group wondered if it was maybe connected to like a negative situation that happened in the home. Maybe foul play, or like maybe like an accidental death or something. And the reason that they thought this was because the youngest boy would always talk about like his imaginary friend who claimed that he had been killed killed in the house. So that's why they thought that. And then the priest instructed the officer to put all the dirt back, and he sprinkled the area with some blessed salt afterwards.
What was the heavy item?
They didn't know. It was like a heavyweight, like just like a metal.
Just like a weight?
Yeah.
Oh.
It didn't look like anything specific, so they didn't know what it was.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah, so while this whole shabacle was happening, Samantha's Samantha's finger, it was like tingling. It was like the little pinky finger that she used to touch the substance.
Girl?
No, Samantha, the caseworker.
Gotcha.
A couple minutes later, after it started tingling, it actually started turning white, and she was like tan. Like her hand was like tan, but like the actual pinky finger was turning white.
What?
And a couple minutes later, it started hurting bad. Like it was like hurting bad. She was like having a hard time breathing, and her finger was hurting, and she was like, oh my god, she felt like a panic attack was coming, so she like ran out of the house to get some air, and LaToya was out there, and so she went by her, and at this time LaToya had like a really bad headache too. And Samantha, she actually got in a few accidents after this, and it's honestly like, you know, impossible to say whether or not it was connected, but she got into a jet ski accident, and she got into a motorcycle accident, and where she got some gnarly burns. Whoa. And she even broke some bones. Yeah, and it sucks because she literally was just trying to be a brave social worker. Social workers are like the backbone of this country, by the way, you know? Yeah. And so she literally was just trying to help these kids out, and in turn all of this stuff happens to her. I can't definitively say that it was connected, but like if it was, that's so crappy.
That,
you know?
Sucks. Yeah, that really sucks.
I know. So yeah, the police captain that was there with them, he left before the rest of the group continued the investigation, because he didn't want to be at the house once the sun went down.
Yeah.
Which, like, I completely understand.
I would not want to be there either.
Yeah. And so the rest of the group continued the investigation. And at this time, they noticed that there was a slippery substance. The same one that they saw in the basement was also on the blinds. You know how they anointed the windows and the doors and stuff? Yeah. They thought that maybe it was LaToya and Rosa continuing to add it, you know, putting on the show kind of thing. Because LaToya and Rosa said that it would just like appear on its own. The group was like, you know what, we're gonna test it, and we're gonna see if we catch them in a lie. And so they closed the door, and they were walking around together, like the whole group together, for like 30 minutes. And then they came back, and the substance was there again.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like they literally couldn't have done that because they were with you the entire time.
Yeah.
And so Father Maginot told the group that was a sign of demonic infestation, for like unknown substances to be reappearing all the time, despite it being washed away, you know.
Oh, jeez.
Woo,
dog. I was gonna say, I don't think that could be faked.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So this is when Father Maginot decides that he wants to write to the Bishop del Metzger and ask for permission to do an exorcism. And in his 20 years, the bishop never approved of an exorcism, and he didn't approve of it now.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he was like, I'm not going to approve it, but you should go seek some guidance from priests who have done it, or, you know, priests that have experience dealing with stuff like this. And so he was like, okay. And so
thanks for your help.
Yeah. And so he went, and Father Maginot went and consulted with some knowledgeable priests, and they advised him to do like a minor exorcism on LaToya. And so the caseworker Samantha and two of the officers that were there attended the minor exorcism, and the caseworker claimed that she felt a presence in the room. Yeah. And after the minor exorcism, Maginot told LaToya, like, you should try to find the names of the demons that were possessing you, because it's important to be able to like identify them, like give them a name during an exorcism to increase the chances that it'll work. And he told her to think about like, the harm that had been done on her family, the type of things that had been done, and to see if she can match the names. And so she did. She went and did research, and she was saying that while she was doing the research, her computer kept freezing. She was having headaches. She felt nauseated, but she persevered. Eventually, she found the names that felt right to her, that correlated with their experiences. Mm-hmm. One of them was Beelzebub, known as the Lord of the Flies.
Whoa.
Yeah. And after she told Maginot the names, he revealed to her that he had gotten permission from the bishop in the Catholic Church to do a major exorcism.
That's a demon name?
Yeah.
That's a cute demon name.
I know, I thought that too.
Beelzebub.
You know that song, like, Sesmodius Satanas. That's like one of them that.
Oh, yeah. Beelzebub.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to like diminish.
Yeah.
Their
No.
pain or anything.
No. they were going to do 3 major exorcisms for this to really work. And so the first 2 would be done in English and the last one would be done in Latin. And so 2 of the police officers involved in the case attended the first 2 and offered emotional support and physical strength. And during the first 2 exorcisms, LaToya thrashed around and was like convulsing violently, and she fell asleep. Father Maginot said that she fell asleep as like a way for the demons to try to diminish the strength of the exorcism.
Whoa.
To like lessen the power of the ritual kind of thing.
Yeah.
And by the end of the second ritual, it seems like they were making progress, and Maginot went on a retreat to like refresh himself, cleanse himself, get himself ready for the final one. In June of 2012, the time came finally for the final exorcism. And so the police decided not to come this time, and so Maginot asked his brother to assist him. I know. I'm like, I have not been doing my makeup this whole time, okay?
It's okay. Just take your time.
Okay,
we're just here to listen.
Okay.
It's okay.
Like, snatched. So in June 2012, the time came for the final exorcism, and the cops decided not to come. But so Father Maginot asked his brother to come to like be there, you know, in case he needs emotional support or like physical support, you know. After a couple times of thrashing around during the exorcism, LaToya fell asleep. This whole thing lasted like a few hours, and it appeared that at the end of the possession that it finally worked. Whatever had a hold of her was finally gone.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. And so she gained custody of her kids in the fall of 2012, finally.
Yay!
And they moved to their new house in Indianapolis, where she had been living with her mom during this whole time, during this whole like DCS investigation. LaToya said that it was the happiest day of her life when she finally got her babies back.
Aww.
Like DCS, they stated that she needed to employ, quote, alternate forms of discipline, not directly related to religion and demon possession, which that sounds like a good idea considering everything the kids have been through.
Yeah.
In an interview with Ursula Bielski, Maginot talked about like his experience with the case, and this was like almost like 3 years later. He told her that he wasn't an appointed exorcist by any means, but that he wasn't unfamiliar with the paranormal. There were a lot of times where he went to homes to like bless the house, to get rid of negative energies and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
And during these times where he like would go to different houses to do that, he never ever saw any spirits or anything like that, but he said that this time was different. He said, quote, I did witness things, and in fact it was things LaToya and her mother were telling me would happen in the house, and then when I was there they happened and I would witness them. I knew these things had something to do with LaToya's ex-boyfriend. Something struck me strange about him. Whenever I would talk about him, things would happen. And I thought, what is the involvement here? Who was involved here? The children? But then when I pressed a crucifix to LaToya's forehead and she began to convulse, I knew it was about her. You normally think that it's something you brought on yourself, a Ouija board, some occult thing, but when it was shown that this was something that happened to them, we were baffled. LaToya was never involved in the occult, never dabbled in anything, but I did think that something was brought in with the boyfriend. The last time he was there, things had gone up to a level where it almost drove them out of the house. So LaToya had been seeing a boyfriend for a while, and then she found out that he was married. And so she broke it off with him. But he continued to pursue her, more stalk her. Like he literally, so like they broke up and she moved to a new house, it was the Carolina house, and he found her. And he would like show up and try to see her, and he would even like try to see the kids when LaToya was at work. And LaToya found out that he was married from his wife. The boyfriend's wife called her to confront her, and LaToya was like shocked because obviously she didn't know, and she was like, I'm not interested in him at all, like I can assure you I want nothing to do with a married man. And the wife was like, you will regret ever messing around with my husband. Why aren't you telling him that? Like why are you telling LaToya that? Like she didn't even know that he was married, you know?
Yeah, especially because she broke up with him.
Exactly. When LaToya initially told Father Maginot about this ex, when she was talking about him, she would feel really hot and uncomfortable. She would get hot and cold, like she would switch off a lot. She felt like nauseous.
Wow.
She told him that like she would get nightmares where he was torturing her, and she'd wake up and like catch her breath and try to ground herself, and then she would fall back asleep and she would go right back to the nightmare. like right back to it. Some people believe in curses, some don't, but according to the Catholic Church, human souls don't do the bidding of mortals, only of God. So demons are the ones that answer mortals' calls when it comes to doing their bidding. And if there's like a vulnerable person, vulnerable in the sense of lacking a connection with God, then they can be susceptible to possession. As I talked about earlier, the Catholic Church believes that a cursed object is, as I talked about earlier, the Catholic Church believes that an object is crucial to a curse. So this could be like a piece of hair, a photo, you know, a sock with the foot part cut out, you know, stuff like that. And Father Maginot talked about this in an interview with Ursula. He said, quote, "We feel there must be some sort of curse because there were many things that were strange. The first time the boyfriend moved in with her, he asked her for her underwear. She asked what for, and he told her that it was to quote, remember this wonderful moment or some such thing. But also at that time, and she never thought about it until much later, she was missing a pair of Air Jordans, expensive shoes that she had bought, and it was like a big deal. And she thought one of the kids took them maybe, or was like wearing them or had messed them up, but they never found them." And also around the same time, Latoya wanted to have a family picture in the living room. She was looking through the stack of pictures she had, and she saw that this photo and the photo of the kids were missing. She never found where those pictures were. When Ursula asked him about like what he and the caseworker and the cops found under the stairs, like the press-on nail, the kid socks, stuff like that, he said that he thought it was part of a necromancy ritual, that he felt like the spirits maybe weren't necessarily connected to the Ammons, but maybe to the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
Not long after Maritza Kowalski's story broke out, Zach Bagans purchased the house. For those that don't already know, Zach Bagans has like a really popular travel channel series. It's called Ghost Adventures, and the show was like really successful for like millions of fans, even though it had its fair share of criticism from people that believed that like the ghost activity was forged. But in 2014, Bagans announced that he was going to live in the house and he was going to film a documentary about the case, and that the film would be released in October of 2015. And he denied any interviews, he denied any tours of the house. After filming in the house, Bagans had the house demolished, and he saved just the stairs that are the stairs and the dirt under the stairs. And you can see it in his museum in Las Vegas, which me and Celeste went to.
Yeah, we did. I'd had no idea where the stairs were from, though.
Yeah, me neither. Not at the time.
Some of the stuff there is weird vibes. For me, sure. At least.
Yeah.
I just remember the doll.
Yeah, the doll is creepy.
There's we don't want to spoil anything. Yeah. You should go see it for yourself.
Yeah. But. In the final scenes of the film, Zach Bagans experienced activity in the house that allegedly led to like some permanent damage in his eyes, so he has to wear special glasses for like the rest of his life.
What?
Yeah.
That's why he wears glasses now?
Yeah. Because of whatever happened in the house, allegedly. And a lot of paranormal experts say that destroying the house was like a horrible idea, that whatever spirits were attached to the house are now attached to Bagans. And so I guess we'll see, you know, in time. And honestly, it's like whether people believe this story, and there's heavy opinions on both sides, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what is undisputable is that this was one of the most notable paranormal experiences in American media, you know, ever. And on January 24th of this year, 2022, Netflix bought out the rights to the story, and they're actually going to be doing a documentary about the story behind Zach Bagans' Demon House, and they have a budget of $30 million.
Holy, wow, Netflix. I mean, I can't be mad at Netflix because I feel like they put a lot of focus on things and like open up things and stuff, which is kind of cool.
I think it's pretty cool. Because it's like, you know, they're doing it about Zach Bagans' documentary.
Oh.
Yeah. And like obviously, you know, the house and stuff, but it's like going to be based around the documentary. So it's going to be interesting to see like what pops out from that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Bagans still owns the property to this day, and this spot is now like an empty grass lot between two houses with like a large tree in the middle of the sidewalk. And Father Maginot believes that there's still a portal at the location. He says, quote, free for any demon to come through and attach, and most of the house is buried there, and the basement was just filled in, and someone picked up a shingle from the roof, and people have picked up other things from the property from there, and they have problems, and it's dangerous to go digging around in there. Then they call me asking for help, and I tell them what they need to do. They must get the souvenirs back to the property. They must renounce it. People have even had to like delete pictures of the place from their phones. Oftentimes they are willing to do anything at that point to get rid of it.
Wow.
Yeah. Maginot said that those who take items from the house or visit without like religious protection later get sick. They have misfortunes, vivid nightmares, negative mood changes. It's strange. And it's kind of like the entity follows them home in a way, you know, since like it's just open, like an open portal, you know? Maginot says, quote, if somebody goes there wanting to experience something, it will oblige them. So yeah, now that the structure is knocked down, Maginot said that he's concerned that the doorway still stands and that the evil resides there.
Oh, and my goodness.
It's interesting because both Latoya and Father Maginot signed movie deals back in like 2014 or something, but they both fell through. So nothing ever came out of that. But yeah, that's the story of the demon house in Gary, Indiana.
Wow.
I gotta finish my makeup real quick. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
Hi.
I hope you enjoyed that.
That was a very creepy story.
Yeah.
And thank you for telling it. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for our next video next year. And if you like this video, please show it some love on youtube.com. And thank you for being here. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe.
Yes.
And maybe if you're into it, click the bell, like the little notification bell, so that when we post a new video, you'll be the first to see it.
It'll send you an alert when you're at work, and you can just play it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.